Okay, In Search of the Cosmic Wow, Chapter 1, A Message from God. It all started one day with a message from God. Quote, "In the beginning man made God in his own image, yea, made he, we, him. And man looked upon such as he had made and knew it was good. And if such as that needed improvement, well, there was time, we could work it out. Yea. And Moses came forth from off the mountain, came he upon his people, and seeing them worship the golden calf, he spake unto them, saying, Worship not that which is of such a golden image, yea. And the prophets heard his words, and wrote them thusly, Go forth, saith the Lord, and multiply thy prophets, that the word shall earn interest, and yea, shall such interest compound daily. And knew they not that the roof of such a house was made of straw, but went forth they, and the wine did flow, and well, there was time for improvement, yea. And Jesus said unto the people that man and God were indeed one, and that was good, and bid he that they might go forth and love their enemies, and file unto Caesar his annual 1040. And the people saw that he was good, and he was pure, and they nailed him to a cross, and said, Well, there is time, we can work this one out too. And then came the word as from the prophets of old, in such as these modern times of new revelation, that indeed the time is short. Words of prophetic import, delivered overnight as by the hand of God via his chosen courier, Federal Express. And such words, though ringing throughout the land with yea, film at 11, were heard not by the masses, and fewer still heard this command from on high, save for his chosen messenger, quote, Seek ye first the cosmic wow, and all else shall pale by comparison, and indeed the time is now. At the bottom of the page it was signed, God. So someday I'll finish it. You can say you heard it here. Okay. Well, let me see. What do we got? 30, 45 minutes? 30? Okay. Well, where shall I take you now? Well, as we skip forward a little bit, we went into the consolidation of the Holy Roman Empire, and its beginnings, of course, was the consolidation of the New Testament, which took place in around 325 AD in something called the Council of Nicaea. Anybody here not familiar with that? I'm sure most.
No, familiar we are.
Yes, you are familiar. Not familiar. Who's not familiar with that?
I've heard of it, but I don't know the details.
Okay. Well, Constantine, who was the Roman emperor, decided to consolidate and integrate all of the religions into one state religion. Okay. And so he took all of the elements of all of the Roman gods and systems, symbology. He took the basically what he was it was time for him as one of the cult of Aton to consolidate into the Western Judeo-Christian binding of the law into one monotheistic system, Judeo-Christian, and integrate all of the symbology, the representations, the astronomy, the astrology, everything. And he had a little party called the Council of Nicaea where they decided how they would put the Bible together. And that was the birthing of Christianity, based on everything that we've been going through all day. And so between 325 and approximately 800, Rome consolidated itself. Even though Rome itself as an empire apparently collapsed, Western Rome collapsed in 473 AD, and Eastern Christendom in Rome, based in Turkey, with the capital in Constantinople, named after Constantine, maintained the Byzantine Empire for approximately another 1,000 years. That was then replaced by the Ottoman Empire, the Ottoman Turks, and they basically emerged, consolidating Islam and creating the polarity between Islam and Christianity, which then went on into the last 550 years. A lot of very fascinating history. We're not going to have time to go over as far as all of that stuff, but the key is that the Roman Empire then segued into the Holy Roman Empire. The Roman Empire never went away. It then became the Holy Roman Empire and exists still today. And it has the tripartite 3 city-states in the structure that I talked about earlier. And of course, the seat of the new Roman Empire is in this place called the Empire State, New York State, right? We're going to cover more detail about how that all relates to money and banking and the modern U.S. system. And of course, it was commemorated by the raising of the Beltane pole, the maypole, called the Empire State Building, which was consecrated or christened on May 1st, as I mentioned earlier. So you have the raising of the maypole on May 1st, then you have the construction of the Twin Towers, the 11, the 2 pillars, that was destined and preordained to, as I said in the beginning of the day, now you see it, now you don't. To lock into the modern psyche of the entire planet and human race, that concept of the twin pillars dissolving and then basically becoming hardwired into our whole consciousness and then kicking off what we've seen in the last 10 years. So the Merovingian line became the Carolingian line, became the monarchical crowned royal lines throughout Europe, and included and retained the aristocracy. Modern banking started emerging in the 1100-1200 period, and what 2 major things occurred. One was the founding of a sect called the Knights of the Temple, commonly known as the Templars, that started in, first of all, we have in the year 1066, William of Normandy conquering that area in southern England or southern British Isles and establishing on the Thames River a little town called London. Which had already been there and templated for 2,300 years.
Londinium.
Right. London, Loon Daon, the light of the light. And everything I talked about earlier, that was 1066. 33 years later, there's that magic number, 11, 22, 33. We just saw the 44, and you talk about as numerology, they call it the master number based on the 2 pillars, number 11. The 11 being what we've been seeing all day, the 22 based on the 22 Hebrew letters, the 22 arcana of the tarot deck. Then you have 33, the 33 degrees of the Masonic system. You have Jesus supposedly doing his work from the age of 30 to 33, which is all symbolic, Masonic symbology. The human body has 33 vertebrae. So it's the rising of the consciousness from the root chakra during the initiations all the way up the vertebrae. And when you reach the 30th vertebrae, you enter the head because the last 3 are in the neck. So it has nothing to do with his public ministry. It has to do with the initiation rising to the head and going through those last 3 degrees and becoming a 33-degree Mason, which is not the end. That's the beginning of the true initiates. There's numerous other hidden degrees that go beyond that. And then, of course, we have the 44, the 2 pillars again in those 2 squares that I started with, and Obama bringing the 2 lines together, the Nubian Royal Imperial line and the Caucasian Rothschild Covenant line of the Davidic line. So obviously, if this is the end time, the end of the template, the end of the manifestation to lock it all in, numerologically and all the rest of it, obviously he is from one vantage point, the Antichrist, but he's just playing it out. He's just playing his role. Did he wake up one day and says, "Oh, Shazam, I'm the Antichrist"? Does he even does he even say it today? Maybe, maybe not. He thinks he's Akhenaten. He thinks he's God. He thinks that he's the inheritor of all power, and he's nothing more than a symbolic manifestation and a pawn in the game that is being moved around. He's imminently dispensable, and all the rest of it. That doesn't mean I want to see him go. He's perfectly, what's the right word? Has the same right to life as anybody else. Don't take what I said, for those of you on the viewing audience, as if I am saying anything other than what the symbolic, energetic construct is. Like all of those numerologies, 70% of this population voted and 11, and did somebody pre-plan that? No, it's a crystallization of the outward picturing of all of this construct that we all collectively have been hardwired to manifest over thousands of years, to fulfill this thing, to birth this template of the final crystallization of our complete imprisonment in eternal slavery. So, in effect, we're all pawns in the game, but we're all masters in the game too. We created it, we can uncreate it, and we can recreate it any way we want, which I'm going to get into more tomorrow. So, I launched off on going into that with the 33 years between the year 1066 and the year 1099. And in the year 1099 was the first crusade. It started in 1096. 1099 they took Jerusalem, the Western Knights. That crusade was initiated primarily by the aristocracy or the royal houses in what we would call France, the Frankish or the Merovingian, Carolinian, Frankish royal lines, who took all of that sweep of movement of 1,000 years from Jerusalem through to the South France, into right here into Paris and all the rest of it, consolidation of the Holy Roman Empire between 800 and 962. And generation to generation in those bloodlines and family lines and so forth, they were handed down the information. It's not like they suddenly woke up one day and said, well, I think, I'm this and I should go do that. No, they knew what they needed to know, and they knew certain times where they were activated. Okay, now's the time. Now's the time to go back and take Jerusalem. Start the second 1,000 years where we're going to reestablish the throne, everything I talked about earlier with the pact between Otto and the Pope. But it started in 1096. They took Jerusalem in 1099, and about 18, 19 years later, in 1118, the initial knights who established the order of the temple, or the Knights of the Temple, went to a very specific place, to where the ruins or the remains of the Solomon Temple were, the Second Temple, and began digging. And they dug for about 9 years, from 1118, 1119 to 1128. And all of a sudden they found something. They went scurrying back to France and they said, hey, we found what we needed. They found tools, they found technology, they found templates, parchments of bloodlines, all the rest of it. And they basically then went over and talked to the Pope and said, hey, this is who we are, this is what we found. And they said, okay, you're it, go. And the Knights of the Temple, or the Templars, were birthed. And for the next 400 or 500 years, basically started mapping out and structuring the banking system of Europe. At the same time, in the 1100s into the early 1200s, the royal families, or the aristocratic families of Venice, who were controlling wealth and banking, moved up to what we call the Netherlands, Holland, and establish their royal houses there in the northern latitudes to start positioning the banking houses that would eventually consolidate into the banking systems of Europe. In the year 1297, Switzerland was founded. And if you look at the primary symbol on the flag of Switzerland, you look at the Templars, they all have basically either a red cross or a white cross. The Templar cross actually looked like this, which of course is called the Maltese cross or the Iron Cross. Mm-hmm. But it's interesting where that comes from. Okay. Did I hear somebody? What?
On each one of those arms, if you take off one side of it, it goes back to that swastika symbol.
Yeah, you can do that. But also, if you take a clock face, oops, I'm ahead of myself, 10, 11. Okay, roughly speaking. And let's say you did another circle and you went 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, and you took the most unique mathematical construct called prime numbers, and you mapped the prime numbers. What you would notice is that other than the first three numbers, 5 is a prime number, 7 is a prime number, 11 is a prime number, 13 is a prime number, 15, 3 and 15 are prime numbers. I'm kind of getting it distorted, but if 17 is a prime number, 19 is a prime number, 23 is a prime number, basically it starts mapping out. You can see the two flares there, and then if you go with the multiples like 25, the root of a prime number, the square root of 5 as a prime number is here. And basically, I'm kind of screwing it up, but basically if you map it, if you do it graphically in a computer, you end up with the 4 bars of the Templar cross. What's the significance of that? Well, we're all basically a prime number. What's the nature of a prime number? It's only divisible by 1 and itself. Okay? We're basically unique in our own indivisibility, and we're also all one and equal. So mathematically speaking, locking us onto the cross of the Templars, the cross of the Swiss banking system, the European banking system, the Christian cross, whatever, is like mathematically, symbolically locking us onto that iron cross of time and space and locking us in to the whole banking monetary system. So between the Templars, the founding of Switzerland, the pattern and the layout, and the Venetians establishing their houses in the Netherlands, basically between the 1200s and the 1600s, we have the laying of the template of the modern financial and banking system. Why were the Templars part of the bankers? Because they had the strongest military. They were the couriers. They were given the highest order, only responsible or under the authority or the orders of the Pope. They had complete carte blanche throughout Europe. And so they had the strongest military strength. They created the roads, the systems of distribution, so they had the ability to protect the movement of money.
Treaties between the King of England in 1213, 1215 and the Pope.
Right, okay. Thank you very much. I'm gonna, that's an important one. Who is familiar with something that took place in 1213 besides our friend here, Paul? What he's referring to. Okay, it's something that is called in history the Holy Alliance. Okay, those who know about it are apt to call it the Unholy Alliance. And basically what it was is in 1213, you have the King of England fearing for his immortal soul and fearing that he had transgressed and had strayed from the straight and narrow of what he needed to do. And so he wanted to pay off his karma. Remember the karmic tokens of the gods of the Matrix? He who has the money gets to buy the boat ride through the Book of the Dead. So he had a lot to pay with, so he paid the price. The price he paid was irrevocably and unconditionally signing off all rights, title, inheritments, and claim to his crown and his lands and his hereditaments to himself and his successors. He took the crown of England and he basically gave it to the Pope. Okay.
What's his king's name again?
John.
King John?
Okay. An interesting name, John. Okay. Do you know where the name John comes from? John the Baptist, King John? You remember this name? That's the wrong one. I keep using that. Jonas? John. Okay. So when energetically and metaphorically and so forth, we were dismembered as we started with and moved out of grounding into the root chakra, Anu, Janu, Janus was put in place. Okay, and so that energetic John the Baptist being beheaded and dismembered, and then the raising of the artificial phallus, the obelisk, and the capital, the head, etc., you will see John recurring many places geographically and otherwise. In fact, in every key place on every continent, the root chakra is named John. Johannesburg, basically John's town, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay. There's a Latin word or name, Iago, okay, which is basically James, but it's a derivative of John. Okay? So when James, Saint James in Latin is Santiago, it's not very well written. Sant Iago. Okay? We have Santiago, Chile. We have San Diego. We have Johannesburg. And up here in Europe, there was an old energetic trail that was established for the 7 chakras. Right. You have 7 stages or positions. Let me get the pointer out. That were actually physically walked for hundreds and thousands of years as initiatory steps to integrate, similar to the 7 chakras up the Nile River, there were places in Europe that the so-called pagans, which were not pagans, the Druidic colleges, knew that there was also a process in the physical geomantic energetics of the planet and the positions that they determined were places where the initiation into each of the chakras, grounding in, would take place. So then when the Catholics took over Europe, they put cathedrals on every one of those. Okay, who built those cathedrals? The Templars. Okay, and so those 7 places were in western Spain, right about there, a place called Santiago de Compostela. Okay, St. John at the root chakra, Santiago. Again, John and Johnson. Remember the Johnson? Pardon?
It starts in northern France, coming into.
Well, no, it starts in southern
Yeah.
Spain at Santiago, then it goes to Toulouse,
Yes, to
right there, if I
Yes.
could hold it steady. Then the third one is Orleans,
Yes.
and that's an important, we're going to revisit Orleans tomorrow. The fourth one is Chartres Cathedral. The fifth one is Notre Dame in Paris. The sixth one is Arien, A-R-I-E-N, in Normandy on the coast. And the seventh one is Rosslyn Chapel, made famous by the Da Vinci Code. So that was a pathway that they walked to integrate their chakra system and all of that. 6 of them had Catholic cathedrals built on top of it. The 7th one was controlled by a Templar family called the St. Clairs, or Sinclairs, and right outside of Edinburgh. Remember Scota and Scotland and Mary Taten in Eden. Remember Edinburgh? The Eden was the place of the gods. That's where we get the name of the garden, Eden. That's a Sumerian 2 words, the Eden, which was actually in southern Sumer. Where would that be? Iraq. Yeah, be right here, between the Tigris-Euphrates River and the delta that went down to the into the Persian Gulf. That was the original Eden. And then when Scota, Mary Taten, and Gaithars and their team went up to the British Isles, they established Edinburgh. Okay, right outside of which later the Templars, after they got kind of lambasted by the King of France in 1307, moved out and resettled and reestablished in northern British Isles. Interestingly, Julius Caesar, who was busy conquering Iberia and all this area in here and consolidating Rome, made it a very specific point in his agenda to go all the way to very northern Scotland to conquer the peoples up there. Why? Because there was a systematic eradication of anything and everything that was historically accurate and valid for the origins of the sources of where this all started, to support the story that God chose his people over here, and they spread it all west. Whereas the truth is it started here, as I described earlier, it spread east, and then it got co-opted, and then they went back west. So back to Jonas, Santiago, we have these points: Johannesburg, Santiago, San Diego, which is the English variant of that, or the Spanish, and the creating of replication of this same 7 chakra system. Again, to close the 7 seals, to lock it in, and to lock us in and control us through controlling the body. Now, of course, they're going into the end game of just completely breaking down and degrading the biological genetic system of almost all of the humans on the planet through everything we know about, chemtrails, fluoride, et cetera, aspartame, all of it. It's to break the body down so that we don't integrate with the body, because we've been all for thousands of years going out looking for heaven, going out, leaving the body. Now they're breaking the body down and trying to eliminate the mass of the population so that they can consolidate their grand game plan at the end of time. Right? Are we going to let them do it?
No.
No.
Hell no.
What's our time? Well, I think we could wrap it up there for the day. Well, let me finish with King John. I launched off on that. So King John just always happens coincidentally. The key players fall into these numerological name constructs of the template that just keeps manifesting. So King John, feared for his immortal soul, he paid it off by giving the Pope and the Vatican the crown. The crown of England is owned by the Vatican, and it is managed by something called the City of London. The City of London is a 1 square mile jurisdiction that is separate from London, England, or the country of England. As I said earlier, it's one of the 3 city-states that control the planet. It's where the crown is held, the kingdom law, the law of the king, while the Vatican controls the law of the priests. And remember, it started with Holy Roman Emperor Otto, and they made the agreement, and Otto, of course, was part of the Saxons, and we have the Anglo-Saxons, we have who are called the Windsors, that the actual family name is, I forget all 3 of them, but what is it? Coburg, they're German. Coburn, well, yeah, Saxon. Oh, I know it is. It's Gotha, Coburn, Coburg, Saxon. That's the House of Windsor. We'll talk about that more tomorrow and where that all dropped into place. The key is that the Vatican owns the crown. They established the City of London, that 1 square mile. When the Queen wants to enter the City of London, she has to ask permission from the Lord Mayor, who is the authority of the city. The city established the original corporation and all corporate charters ever since. So when we say that we incorporate, we go inside the corporation. It's not Washington, D.C., it's not the United States. That's a subdivision of the master corporation, which is the city, right? And the city controls the commercial and corporate interest of the owner of the crown, the Vatican. And that is controlled by the treasurer of the city called the Chancellor of the Exchequer. Okay, and he's called the Exchequer because he did his business on a checkerboard cloth, like the Masonic checkerboard. Okay, and inside the city, the Templars established something called the Temple Bar. And there are 4 temples called the Temples of the Court, or the Inns of the Court. And that is the base of, or the home headquarters, if you will, of something called the Bar Association. So all attorneys at bar are part of the Temple Bar and the Inns of Court, adjudicating and processing as foreign agents of the Crown, ultimately working for the Vatican, the financial business of the Exchequer, to attorn or turn in the physical, the cattle, the chattel property, which is us, to the benefit of the Crown, to its ultimate owner and master, the Vatican, the Holy See, the Eye of Atan.
Specifically, a turn is to turn one's rights away from another.
It's also to turn property over, to attorn, to bring it into bar. Okay, so when you cross the bar, and we're going to go into this a lot more tomorrow, when you step across the bar, you are entering an entirely different jurisdiction, and you lose all competency, or you basically declare you are an incompetent, and you are being adjudicated and attorned by a foreign agent called a bar attorney for the benefit of the exchequer, the treasurer, and the agent of the crown for its master and owner,
And
the
that's
Vatican.
that's still in place, what you're telling us right now.
To this moment.
Oh, yes.
And the Vatican profits money-wise from that still?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I just want to make double sure, I want to make double sure I understand.
Yeah.
Is it-
The Queen gets her portion, the House of Windsor,
Oh, yes.
who are descendants of Otto the Great in the Merovingian line.
Mhm.
The Crown gets its portion, the city gets its portion, and the Vatican takes its portion. And the various agents, including the Rothschilds and all the rest of it, we're going to get into all that tomorrow. But that's basically the setup, going back from where we started to the basic foundation of the banking system and the kingdom and the crown. And in law, what's considered the highest jurisdiction or body of law is called canon law.
Okay, yes, I know. I'm
Okay,
familiar with that.
the canons of the church. Next is kingdom law. Okay, do you know where the word canon comes from? Well, there's a goddess from Asia called Kuan Yin, the goddess of mercy and compassion, out of which we get canyon. In Egypt, the canyons are where the crocodiles lived, where they honored that energetic. They harvested the mesa, the fat of the crocodile. And did I make that clear earlier when I talked about the mesa, that it's the fat of the crocodile
Yes, the fat of the crocodile.
that they used as the anointing oil for the initiates?
Somewhere yesterday.
Pardon?
I just read this somewhere yesterday.
Yeah. So it comes from Kuan Yin, another feminine principle. Canyon, which in Spanish is spelled like this with a little whatever they call that thing. And then we have the word canon law.
Yes.
Again, it's the overlay of the masculine, the law of the priest, overlaying the feminine principle and turning it into binding laws. Okay, so you have canon law followed by kingdom law. Kingdom is who? The king, the crown. Okay? Then you have commercial law. Law mercantilius. Commerce. You have Vatican City, you have City of London, and you have Washington, D.C.
So how is the city of London or the crown owning the United States?
We'll get into that tomorrow.
That's tomorrow.
Okay?
Ken, you should mention what territory the King of England owned at that point in time.
Yes.
In 1230.
I don't know, so tell me.
Well, it was France and part of Germany right at that time.
Yeah.
They invaded in 1066
From France,
and they
right,
came across.
yeah.
So it wasn't just England, it was the territory of much of Europe.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
And then you have and there's other things that happen. You have the rebellion of the French during what was called the 100 Years' War with Joan of Arc, that was finally settled, and, the re-implementation of what you're talking about, so that the crown of England, the King of England, is also the King of France, even though you have the Frankish line, the Louis and all the rest of it. And there's some interesting things about that we'll talk about tomorrow. Remind me about that. Louis the 16th and the Sun King, the Dauphin, and all of that.
Another interesting fact around that period, the Great Fire of London, 1666, made way for the Corporation of London's Square Mile,
Yes.
which is the enclave of the Vatican, and it's believed that was a false flag event, that the area, just happened to burn down was the slum of London at that time. So it was that square mile that then was turned into the Corporation of London.
Right.
And that is, there are borders, you know, and what is it called, boroughs, or what is it called when you're in London? There's a city, in the middle of London, it's something called different when you move outside, still to the day.
It's called the Corporation of London.
You're right, exactly.
But it's where all of the financial power is centred.
Okay, that's.
Yeah.
Needle Street, the Bank of England.
Fleet Street.
The stock exchange.
Right, and Fleet Street that controls the media. That's exactly where we're going to start tomorrow.
Yes.
I have a dumb question. I just saw the King's speech.
Yeah.
I really liked the movie, but I did not know that the King really didn't have any kind of power at all, other than figuratively. Is this because of the transfer of power in 1310, where they gave the King away?
In large part.
So Parliament now orchestrates and manages the King, so they can't do that anymore.
Well, the ultimate power and control
What's the plan?
is the city.
Yes.
The people of the city.
Yeah. No, not the people.
The city of London.
Oh,
The city of London. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, but let's leave it there, and we'll go and we'll start with all this tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, this is great, man.
So, sweet dreams.